the topic tonight is really kind of pointing towards emotions, I guess, more than anything else. And I wanted to speak about that real quick before we meditate. And there's a couple primary emotions that we're all familiar with and they're just a part of life. They're a part of who we are, and we experience them all the time, every day, probably. And these emotions are I guess, like key emotions are fear and anger. These emotions come up a lot in Buddhist teachings, along with general suffering, I guess, but also with desire, as being an emotion and being a state. But when we look at fear and anger, we can get a really good glimpse of how we create these things ourselves. And it doesn't always seem like it, but we most certainly do. And when we look at it very, very carefully and kind of, be very, very aware of these two emotions and how they come up, it can serve us well, very, very well, to be aware of them. But it also teaches us so much. I mean, we can accept these things, this anger or this fear, or we can be so aware of it that it doesn't come up for us. And what I mean by that is how we can tie that in with the past and the future, and how we see these things and work with these things from an intellectual standpoint, but more of an awareness by itself. So the more we understand and more that we are aware of fear and anger and how it presents itself within these places of past and future, it's very, very beneficial. So when we look at the past and compare that with anger, and most of you have heard me talk about this before, but I think it's important for this meditation. So we think about the past and something that has happened in the past. If anything is going to anger us, it is something that has already happened. And it's true that anger can come up right now, and it can come up very, very spontaneous. But it's always, by the time we have an opportunity to say, I'm angry, for example, or that there's a state of anger within me, that kind of thing. If we are saying that, we are angry about something that has already happened. If we drop something on our toe and we get angry, for example, that anger seems to come up real quick. I mean, it's there right now when it happens, but it happened because of that thing that already happened in the past. We dropped something on our toe. And, the example of somebody cutting us off in traffic, that's always an example that we can always use, that we get angry when there's a traffic situation, when we're driving down the freeway and there's somebody does something what we would label as stupid, and we can get angry at that person. It's kind of like getting angry at that car more than anything else, I guess. But when that anger comes up, it's because of some incident that person had already done. Now, they might be driving crazy, and if that's happening, if you really look at it, it's still, what is angering us in the moment is something that had already happened. If we witness that person driving crazy in front of us now, it's more instinct and intuition that is at play there. It's not really anger. Anger comes a split second or much, much later. We can anger ourselves by thinking about something that somebody did to us, can't we? And we all might hold these kind of things of these moments of anger within us, and we know that these triggers are there. We know what angers us. At least we should, in our adult years, being a mature person, we should understand what angers us, and then we can kind of be on the lookout for that. And the only reason that we can understand what angers us is because it has already happened. And if it happens again, that anger could come up. If we are aware of it, there's a really good chance that that anger might come up to whatever degree we want it to come up at. And that's the whole point of being aware of this anger and how it works for us. Anger can be very sneaky. It can be very, very sudden. And knowing that fact is also very, very helpful. And some people don't want to control their anger, and that's fine. If there's a reason why they should control it, oftentimes many people will. And we don't really have time to talk about it right now. We covered a lot of this in the 8-week course about emotions that we had about a year and a half ago now, I think it was. But I'm not talking about the kind of anger that we're going to hold inside. I mean, that is still anger, and we're holding it inside, and it's kind of like we could blow our top, and these emotions come out, and we get all angry, and we just kind of have a fit, and that can happen. But when I'm talking about us being aware of anger, it's not that we're more analyzing and being mindful of the anger rather than taking it as full 100% anger and stuffing it down inside. There's a difference there, and maybe we can talk about that later on after the meditation. But on the other side, maybe we could call it the flip side of that coin is the future, and fear is future based. And I think we can all agree with that when we take a real close look at it and understand that if we think of something that is uncertain, something that startles us, something that is going to do us harm or do harm to our loved ones, for example, that can bring up fear for us. And it's usually just a mental aspect of what might happen, what could happen. And the thing about fear, false evidence that appears real, is a very good acronym, because we create it within our own mind. A lot of times we forget that. We can be fearful of something that has happened in the past, but we're still fearful that it might happen in the future. And again, fear seems like it can be immediate and spontaneous right now. But again, that's that instinct and intuition that is taking a part in there. If there's immediate danger coming, we are most likely not fearful. We're usually poised, and we should be ready for action, but not fear. That fear will come later. Again, let's use the traffic as an example. If there's a near miss on the freeway, where somebody hits their brakes and you hit your brake, you realize you're not going to stop, so you swerve to the left into the shoulder, and you get by, and there's no problem, nobody gets hurt, and then you kind of get back on the lane, in your lane, and you're driving, and then that warmth, that fear comes up, like, wow, what happened? What just happened? And then maybe a little tremor, or sometimes just a boost of adrenaline, or whatever it might be for us. But that feeling can come up later on. But if we imagined that there might be an accident in the future, that's the kind of fear that we're talking about and using in this example, the fear that we create. And I think we all understand that we have this anticipation for the future. We think the future might work in this way. We're trying to protect ourselves. Probably the greatest fear that we have is the fear of our own mortality, our own death is perhaps the biggest fear that we have. And so for somebody that's very, very, somebody that's awake and very spiritual and has no fear of their death, they understand death from that, from that spiritual platform. They usually find that most of their fears are able to easily be let go as well, because that pinnacle of fear is gone. You know, really be mindful. If you're angry, ask yourself, what am I angry about? In other words, check and see that it happened in the past. And usually when we can do that, the anger diminishes. It's like, oh, okay, I understand why I was angry. I don't have to be angry anymore. It's oftentimes that simple. As far as our fear goes, if we feel this fear coming up, think in terms of what am I imagining might happen in the future? What might what might transpire in the future that is causing this fear to happen for me? And I think you'll I think you and anybody else that does this can be extremely mindful about their emotions of fear and anger. You know, these two primary emotions. And once we figure out these two emotions, and the rest of them become, in many cases, become much easier to figure out. So I'd like to do this meditation, a meditation about a stream, about a body of running water. And again, this meditation was adapted from the book Emptiness by Guy Armstrong. And so I don't want to take credit for writing it. I'm going to again read this like a script, kind of like I did with last week with the mountain meditation. So before we start, are there any questions? Any questions from anybody? Okay. Wonderful. I invite you to make yourself comfortable. You can dim the lights a little bit. I see people dimming their lights. That's good. You can put on your sunglasses if you want. And I invite you to close your eyes. Bring yourself into a state of presence. That presence can be likened to the mind that is not reaching into the past or into the future. So if we're very, very present, there is no fear, there's no anger. And consequently, there wouldn't be any desire. And these things can come and go into this state of presence, but the true presence is free from past and future, fear and anger, and the desire for things to be different. So in meditation, we want the breath and the breathing to be a nice continual flow, breathing in and breathing out, like a river is flowing continuously, freely, on its own power. A stream is a body of running water that is flowing on the earth. A stream has banks on each side of it, but the flowing water is what actually makes it a stream. Like a river, a stream has a definable shape and location. The Mississippi River refers to one body of water, and the Colorado River refers to another, for example. The shape of any stream varies from moment to moment, depending on rainfall, snowmelt, tributaries, and so on. But each stream can be named or designated in a meaningful way. These designations are useful and take on increasing importance as water becomes scarcer all over the world. Although the name of the river or stream is fixed, when we stand on the bank and look into the body of running water, we see that there is no consistency there at all. Nothing is stable. We may be looking at a fairly steady shape, but the actual makeup of the stream is always changing. We see the water in front of us just for a moment, and then it passes by, replaced by a new swish of water, and then it moves on. If we're lucky enough to see a fish swim past or a branch floating by, we see these things just for a moment. An eddy might form and then it's all smoothed out. Nothing is fixed. It's all in a flowing manner. It's a flowing stream. But something is always there. It's an ongoing pattern of changing waters. And it's obvious why, for thousands of years, the stream has been used as an analogy for the mind. A small portion of the stream we are looking at can be likened to the present moment. The present moment has already flowed downstream, and the future moment is still upstream. Nothing remains the same from one moment to the next, except the shape of the stream that is outlined by the banks, which we could say is an analogy for the body. There is no enduring entity in the stream, just as there is no lasting self in the mind. Yet some streams are clear and fast, while others are slow and muddy. And each stream has its individual nature. Once in place, the characteristics of the stream tend to continue, just as karmic formations tend to repeat, giving a sense of continuity to our personalities. But unlike our minds, streams don't form an identity around their personality, such as I am the mighty Mississippi, or I am the longest river in the country, or I am so wide, I carry more cargo than any other river around. Mississippi River wouldn't think like that, but we do. And a mind stream contains karmic patterns that repeat over and over. Some are beautiful with qualities of compassion, generosity, and intelligence, while some are painful with qualities of selfishness, rudeness, and confusion. And these repeating formations make us think that we are something in an ongoing way, something fixed. We create an image based on these patterns. And the more strongly we believe in this image of ourselves, the more likely it is that these patterns will arise again in the future, confirming all of this, confirming the self-image. So our repeated actions, we could call these this habitual karma, is strongly conditioned by our personality view. And the personality view reinforces a tendency to act in certain ways. So if we're used to having anger, if we're used to being fearful, these can be habitual patterns. They may be something that we learned as a young person, watching our parents. If we grew up in a home that was filled with fear, likely we were fearful ourselves and still are, unless we have the awareness of why and how that has happened. So we identify with our habitual actions of body, speech, and mind. And each time we become angry or fearful, we identify and become that person again and again each time. So the river has been flowing for a long time and being formed from different tributaries that are flowing into the river. In the same way, new intentions from our practice can start to flow into the old river of life, like small tributaries. The more we meditate, the more we understand. The tributaries are tiny at first, and their currents could be very weak, like in the river. But as they grow stronger, the tributaries start to dominate. They can change the channel of the river, causing it to flow in an entirely new direction. Eventually, we can see how it has headed away from what we could see or call like samsara. And that river could be heading into the ocean of nirvana, what we could call the Nibbanic ocean, perhaps. And this is the destination of our path and our practice of meditation. So it's the small tributaries, the small steps that make the big difference. If there's any anger or fear that comes up, perhaps even in this meditation, that is an opportunity for growth and for learning. And again, I ask and challenge you to look at this and see what aspect of anger came from the past and is perhaps stored in the past. And every moment that fear arises, take a look at what aspect of the future starts and creates this fear, and why is it there? The first steps to eliminating these states, these emotions, or at least working with them in such a way that they can be beneficial. So sit in silence, focus on the breath. Become very present, and when you're pulled away from this presence, it's unlikely that you'll be fearful or angry in the moment, but it's possible. Take a look at that and see if there's something to be learned from it. Anger coming from the past, and fear residing in the future. For the last few moments of this meditation, is bring your attention to the breath if it's not there already. Just kind of check in and ask yourself how present were you during this meditation, particularly during the silent last half of it. And were you able to be present in the first part of the meditation as well? There's no right or wrong, and no challenges as to how long we can rest in this present moment, in this stillness, as we all come in and out of it. But it's the presence where we learn the most about ourselves. And it's coming out of the presence when we can notice the emotions, if that's what we need to be working with. Particularly fear and the anger. So bring your palms together in front of you if you like, in front of the heart center. May each one of us and all beings be well, happy, and peaceful. May no harm come to us. May no difficulties come to us. May we all meet with spiritual and worldly success. May we have the patience, the courage, and the understanding to meet and overcome any problems or any difficulties that we might face. Thank you so much. I hope it was a good meditation for you. I think it was for me. I could have sat a little bit longer, actually, but we have time restrictions. I'd like to ask if there's any questions that anybody might have or any comments about the meditation, the guided aspect, or maybe even the silent part. And our theme, or what we're looking at, and that's the emotions of fear and anger, and how they relate to us and our practice, how they relate to the past and future.
I don't have any questions, but the topic is appropriate for where I'm at.
Yeah, it's so much a part of people's lives right now, and I know when the COVID thing came out, I did a meditation based on something about don't have any fear, or something about working with the fear, kind of very much like what we're doing now. And on the head, at the top of it, there was the word fear, and YouTube threatened to take it down. They thought it was some kind of a propaganda or something. You know, they thought I was going to tear down the deep state or something like that. Or, but they wouldn't let me do any monetizing on it, which means that you get paid like 1/100th of a cent for each commercial that comes out. You know, they wouldn't let me do that, but they did let me keep it up there. But the reason I did that is because of, when COVID came out, there was a lot of, we all noticed that there was a lot of fear happening. And it's still there. A lot of people, for a basic understanding of fear is the toilet paper crisis that we had, the shortage. Everybody was afraid that we were going to run out of toilet paper, and then what are you going to do?
Yeah.
We just weren't prepared for it. I mean, it was a real fear. And every time we go to the store, people were looking for toilet paper and wanting,
Yeah.
did you get any toilet paper? Did you score any? And of course, a lot of the fears that we have now, whether they're related to the COVID situation or not, the fears of money and fears of getting along with the way the economy is kind of shifting. It's shifting quite. A lot of people see that it's shifting quite fast. The prices are going up really rapid, and some of the things we can't get anymore, or have difficulty get them. All sorts of things like that. And then the mind starts thinking, what about, how will it be, a month from now? What will it be by the end of the year? And there's the preparation thing. Then people start preparing, and that's one of the things. We didn't really have time to talk too much about fear, but there are pluses and minuses of fear, and it's very natural to have these things. What we want to do as humans is understand and be aware of fear and how it works for us, and for us to be able to notice it. But fear, without fear, any kind of fear, we wouldn't be able to recognize, true danger, or we wouldn't be able to prepare for certain things. So there's, like I said, there's pluses and minuses. And the main thing is that we understand when it comes up, that we can feel it and recognize it right away, and see whether it's worthy, something that's worthy for us to carry around. Or can we just let it go at that time? And oftentimes when we can, we start looking. It's like the cat looking for the mouse, coming out of a little hole in the wall or something. When you keep looking and looking and looking, it's not there. But then when you stop looking, it surprises you. It's like all of a sudden there. And fear is pretty much one of those things where if we look for it and really try to understand our fear, it's not very present. It's something that we can use and something that we can work with and learn from. But if we let our guard down, that fear can sneak up and cause some real problems for us, and holding us back from what we want out of life, and holding us back from what we should be enjoying. Life is very short, and there's a lot of things that we could be enjoying, and perhaps we're not, because we're afraid to do so.